If you're looking to move to France for school or for work, I'm offering for completely free this book I wrote called Fit In France. I actually wrote this a long time ago, but I just did not have the courage to share it with anyone. Here in France, I was asked by this lady who has never seen an Indian man before if she could touch my hair. The first question she asked me when I sat down is, "What are you doing here?" That was the first time I felt exotic in my life, like a peacock. You must have seen someone from rural India wanting to touch the hair of a blonde person or their white skin. This happens in big cities like Mumbai too. In this video, I want to talk about this exotic aspect for a foreigner here in France, especially if you're a non-white foreigner. I'll share a couple of stories like that hair-touching one which happened to me, which could be more or less what you could expect if you moved over here. Since my life today is more than what I expected it to be when I first moved here to France as a student, I'll share with you also this mindset shift that I had to go through. Once you've heard of this shift yourself, you can decide if that's something that you want for yourself or not. See, the word exotic sounds great until it becomes your whole identity. I mean, if you're invited to a party just because you're Indian and then that diversity box is checked out, I mean, I don't think that's the kind of adjective you want attached to yours. There's this quote that marries the two sides of the coins, exotic and excluded, in my opinion. People treat you the way they feel about you. And of course, I'm including all the psychopaths out of this. Those people don't treat you the way they feel about you. They are way too selfish for that. But for regular people on everyday life, they treat you the way they feel about you. Making friends in France also has these two sides of the coin. The first side is you and the second side is the environment that you've just been introduced to. In this video, I want to talk to you about the first side of it, the you part, the way you feel when you're introduced to this new culture, to this new environment. In today's day and age, the way you feel about yourself and the way you carry yourself can influence to a great deal how you're treated in a foreign country like France. Let's get straight to it. See, if you move to France as a student, you'll find yourself in one of those big student cities like Lille or Grenoble, and you'll find yourself surrounded by a lot of international people from all over the world. There'll be so many people of roughly your age group, and you may feel that this is your France experience. And if you've signed up for the student experience and at the end of this you want to go back and live back your regular life, then this is great. You have the student experience and you don't have to deal with the locals. But if you're looking to settle down in France, that experience can be completely different from the everyday French people that you would live with when you're not a student. If you want to have the authentic French experience, you have to step out of this expat bubble and meet the locals, meet French people from France, 60 million of them. With that disclaimer out of the way, here's my hot take. If you talk to anybody who's moved to France a couple of years ago, you'll realize that vive la bloody France is notorious for mistreating people. At least it's been this way in the past. My well-wishers from Lille discouraged me from this farm experience when I told them that I'm going to live with these strangers because they were mistreated by strangers when they first moved here a couple of decades ago. After 3 months of living on a farm with only white people, many of which in that village had never seen an Indian man before, I must say that the exclusion never happened. The exotic did, but the exclusion never happened. I met the most loving people that I cherish to this day. Getting a phone call from them is just so rewarding to know that these are my friends now. Contrasting that experience with my business school experience where I was trying to fit into French friend circles to kill two birds with one stone, learn French, make friends. It just didn't happen though, as much as I tried. Friend circles are much smaller here and there was no vacancy when I was looking. I was super sensitive about this exclusion-inclusion thing because the only time I was ever included in many circles was when it was time to collect money for somebody's birthday party. I had a generous serving of that in the city. I went into video editing back then as well, and this language learning thing was right up my alley. But as much as I tried, I just inexplicably was not included into these student associations. I asked and I just got no response. It definitely leaves a sour taste in your mouth. Now, when I was on the farm, I took a couple of horse riding lessons every Wednesday, and this lady who owns this horse riding lesson called me over after I had made my payment, and she asked me if I would like to have a little piece of tarte mirabelle. That's a little dessert she made from mirabelles, this fruit that grows in the east part of France. I took this picture with her permission. Now you must understand, it's not as busy and rushed like in a large city like in Paris. People have time for each other to sit down and talk in the countryside. I was waiting for my ride to pick me up and that was a good 15-20 minutes to sit down and exchange with this owner of this table. The first question she asked me when I sat down is, "What are you doing here?" She was just intrigued by the fact that a brown man is in a remote little village in the east of France. I also discovered that she worked in Paris back in her youth and then decided that her life is really in the countryside where she gets to work with people and with horses. I don't remember much about that conversation because my French was not that flawless back then. We're talking back in 2017, just a few months after I had moved into France for the first time. What I do remember though is the interest that she took in just me and not the other volunteers and other students who came to learn horse riding then. And it's probably because I looked nothing like the crowd. If I was from Czech Republic. So she might have just detected the accent, but that would have been it. That's like a positive spin to always standing out. It could be tiring at first to always stand out and to be pulled out from the crowd, but a lot of this is based on your perception. You can be super sensitive about this, like why am I pulled out from the crowd? Why am I just not regular? Especially when you're in a really small village. Or you could think of it as an opportunity to share your story. It definitely won't happen to you in a bigger city, like in Paris, for instance, or in Lille. But in a village, this can happen to you. Remembering these instances, however, they vividly put a spin, they put a flavor and a kind of memory tone to your whole experience on the farm, because the negative experiences, trust me, there've been plenty on the farm, because human relations are just conflict prone. We have more of a tendency to remember the negative ones, and if we don't intentionally remember the positive ones, then you can just say, oh, that period when I was on the farm was terrible, oh, that period was also terrible, because you only remember the negative ones. So you should force yourself to remember also the positive ones. When people are generous to you, people are nice to you, that also happens. We tend to forget that. You increase the likelihood of avoiding exclusion when you find people who like to do the same things that you find fun. That's a long sentence. Whatever you find fun, the moment you find people who do the same kind of fun, the likelihood of inclusion is really high. If you're coming to France from a non-French speaking country, then you already have that language thing. It's right up your alley. You have to learn it one day or the other. So sticking with language learners is a great way to kickstart your community. So if you find yourself in an environment where you just keep getting excluded because of the person that you are, the way that you look like, you got to know that it's not you. It gave me a big boost of confidence when I moved to the farm and realized that it's not me who's broken or inherently undesirable, because I could make friends on the farm as well, and these people are still in touch with me today, and it really melts my heart to know that these people are still here. So if you're the one just feeling excluded because you're trying and it still is not working out, it's not you, bro. If you moved to another environment, to another city, into another friend circle with another list of hobbies, there are very good chances that you start feeling included. That is the point of this video. If you're looking to move to France for school or for work, I'm offering for completely free this book I wrote called Fit in France. I actually wrote this a long time ago, but I just did not have the courage to share it with anyone. Now that I found it in my computer, I was like, well, I'll just send it. It drives value to those whom it drives value to. It's completely free. It's on the link down below. Writing a book is so much work. It's not like an essay where you have like a short, you're trying to make a point with it. I'd like to hear what you think about it. It's definitely going to help you integrate into your life here in France. Next week, I'm talking about affording luxury with a regular job here in France. If you showed me pictures of my life today, the cities that I'm traveling, the Airbnbs that I'm living in, and the amount of money that I'm spending on these experiences, and you put it to Joshua from 2016 when I first moved to France, I would really not believe you. I had no idea that I could afford these things. In fact, I was convinced that I could never afford these things because my job applications were not going all that great. So I want to talk to you guys about that kind of luxury that I have been able to build for myself in next week's video. Definitely hit that bell to be notified when the luxury video comes out next week. In the meantime, check out this video where I'm talking about the best investment, hands down, for my life here in France. Learning the French language with the right amount of distance from grammar. I'll see you next week. Take care of yourselves and keep it.
Tu as fait ça? Oui. Merci beaucoup. Et vous aimez pas trop la tarte Mirabelle, vous, pour manger? À cause des kilos. Il y a plein de sucre, c'est ça? Mais merci beaucoup.